then I will. But if I say no at that time, then that's a no. That's just how I feel about that. It's just, to me, it's not that I'm hiding anything or anything. It's just no. I just don't feel like every single person should know every single aspect of my life, because that's something that's me, that's what I have, that's what makes me me. And there are things that I'm allowed to keep to myself. And there's a
Absolutely.
thing,
1,000%.
and there's,
1,000%.
and if that's something that I want to keep to myself and keep for myself, I should be allowed to do that without having to give an explanation. I don't think everything needs an explanation. I just think that some things just need to be just accepted or not accepted. That's all.
Yeah, and it definitely like depends on like how connected you and your partner are in that situation. Like you don't have to give an explanation, but to be able to say like, hey, like this comes from a really sensitive place for me, and I'm not ready to talk about that, but I want you to know, like, you know, it's because I care about our relationship that I don't want to bring this up right now. And, being able to give them something just so that they are oriented toward, okay, like she's looking out for our relationship and for me and for her. It's not about like trying to hide something from me necessarily.
Yeah, no, I mean, I wouldn't flat out just be like, no, no, it's not gonna happen. Like, I'm not, heartless or anything like that. But I'm not gonna go into a full detailed explanation either. I'm just gonna be like, no, it's just not the perfect time, or no, you just trust me, you don't want to. It's gonna be something, but it's not gonna be like all the detailed explanation, because I don't feel like I should have to give that to them, because to me, no should satisfy it enough. But the fact that I respect you enough to even give you some kind of explanation, that should be enough.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
Right, right.
Yeah.
And
Boundaries are so
and like you
important.
said, there you go. There you go. Yeah, that's the thing. It's boundaries and, being able to be truthful, because if you're being truthful enough to say, okay, you know what? No, I don't I don't want you to meet my family. There's some things there I'm just not comfortable with. I just don't like, or um I feel like they could, be a problem in our relationship. You're honest enough to be able, to say that you're setting those boundaries. You're saying, okay, this is not right now, this is not it. Then I also believe that those boundaries should also be respected. They should be
Mm-hmm.
respected as well. And so, by your partner. And if they're not respected, if those boundaries cannot be respected, then you need to go ahead and, like we keep bouncing back to, revisit, okay, is this for us? Is this relationship one that you and I should be in? If you just can't simply respect the boundary of me saying, you know what? No, now is not the time for you to meet my family.
Mm-hmm.
Now is not the time. And so, and since we've spent so much time on this topic, have you dealt with and had to speak with couples who have had issues concerning family? Because I know, for one, like I said, and I'm bouncing back to being married, that the family issue was a really, really huge problem with us. Whether if it was someone in my family not liking him, or someone in his family not liking me, where it did play a huge role and caused a lot of conflict and a lot of issues.
Yeah.
Have you ever experienced or have had to deal with couples who just had their family so far into their relationship that it just you just wasn't really sure, I guess, where to start or even where to go or even how to help them in that area?
I've had couples where they've had, one of them's had a really toxic family, and they've really tried to keep that family member or that whole family away from the relationship. And it's a challenging thing, but I find that, what works the best is when the couples come together as a team and they're like, okay, we're going to choose to not make each other the enemy right now. and to instead be like, okay, how do we create safety in our relationship? And for some of them, it's, I've got some clients who are like, I'm just going to like actually cut off that family and you will never meet my family, like
Right,
that's
right.
just not going to ever happen because I don't want to expose you to their abuse. And then there are other people who are like, hey, like, okay, my partner knows how to handle these dynamics when we're around them and knows what is going on. And we as a team are going to strategize through that before we go see them so that we can handle it together. The problem comes up when couples don't act like a team and all of a sudden, maybe you feel like your partner hates your family and then you're trying to defend the family and then you guys are, clashing with each other. So, the biggest thing is like, can you guys be a united front when you're dealing with your toxic family members?
Mm. It seemed like, and again, this is just off of experience, it seems like it can be difficult because
Mhm.
like, again, for my ex-husband, it almost seemed like I was in um, it almost seemed like I was like in a battleground, if you would.
Mhm.
If we were like, okay, you know, like I was competing, especially against his mother and things like that. It almost felt like I was competing with those problems,
Mhm.
with those issues. Um, how do you go about addressing, how would anyone go about addressing that conversation? First of all, with their partner, why does it feel like a competition? Because for me, personally, and even with, some people who I know who's been married or who is married, they don't want to say anything and fear of disrespecting the family, or
Mhm.
their partner feeling some type of way, that they said, okay, you know what, no, I really don't like this, or I really don't like this family member, or I don't like that, I feel like I'm in a competition. How would anyone go about addressing that conversation with their partner so that they know? Because it seems like, and again, off of experience, it can be difficult to do because you don't want
Yeah,
to
it is.
overstep a boundary.
Yeah, it's extremely difficult to do, especially if, you know, your partner is super enmeshed with that toxic family member and is like to the point where, yeah, it feels like a competition. Like they're allies with their family member more than they are allies with you. And that's where I'd say like couples therapy is really helpful because it creates that safe container where there's a third party that's able to keep the conversation safe, help redirect, help, point out, okay, like I don't know if you actually heard what they were trying to say. Let's try this again because something got lost in communication. And I
Mm,
think with tender subjects like this, it's really helpful to have that third party there who knows what to look for and knows how to keep the situation safe. Because sometimes it is so entrenched in that person to, be 100% on their family member's side and
mm,
to the point where they get very offended if you were to say like, that family member, like, I really don't like how they did that or whatever. Um, they can be so enmeshed that it's almost impossible for them to hear you sometimes and to hear your heart when you're saying like, no, it's just that I don't feel comfortable around them or what they did really hurt me. These are things that are very okay to say and should be voiced,
mhm.
but if somebody is that enmeshed, like they're not going to hear you correctly. So it's helpful to have somebody that can clear up communication and keep the conversation safe for both of you.
Right. Right. And I agree with
Mhm.
that. That's definitely, where a counselor, a couples counselor and things like that would come in handy. And maybe it's not a counselor, maybe it's a pastor, maybe it's a friend, some
Mhm.
type of
Yeah.
mediator, someone to come in hand who
Mhm.
can communicate those things effectively so that it's getting across. So that is getting
Yeah.
across to your partner. I'm going to join another person with us on this conversation. This is my person. His name is Brandon. So he's going to come on and he's going to join us and he's going to be a part of this conversation with us. Hello, Brandon. How are
Great.
you?
Hi.
Hello.
Hi,
Hello.
Hi.
Brandon.
Thank you. I feel
Um,
like a person.
you feel like a person. He feels like a person. So we were just talking about how people handle um, going to their partner, going to their spouse when they have an issue or they feel like they're in competition with the family. Do you have any thoughts on that?
In competition with your family?
When it feels like your partner is in competition with your family.
Partner is in competition with your family.
Mhm. How do you
Um,
address a conversation with someone where you're just like, you know what, I feel like I'm at a like like your maybe let's just say your mother, for example, where I feel like your mother we're always competing for your time or for your attention. How do you address a situation like that?
mm, okay. I'm glad you clarified. Um, Men and women are very different, as we all know. Um, Competition is a must for a lot of men. If your man is not competing in your family, he might not be a part of the family. But when it comes to competing for your time or your convection, for your affection, your attention, then those things sound a bit childish, can be a bit childish.
Mm.
I
And
believe
so
that's how you address it.
you address it how? What do you mean? Explain a little bit.
To be straightforward and let them know that you think that they might be a little childish.
Mm. So saying like, okay, I think this family member is a little childish and this is how I feel. I feel like I'm always in competition with your mother for your time and attention. And would you be okay with your partner just coming to you and saying, okay, this is a problem. I don't have an issue. Or are you someone who maybe easily get offended when they say, okay, this is a problem, but you don't like the fact that they feel like they're in competition with your family?
I think it actually can be healthy at a certain point. Um, Family does your family doesn't have to compete for your attention. They're your family. But in certain areas of family, there is that type of competition for between mother and father, between brother and uh, parents and things like that. But when it comes to your spouse, then that's where you may have to set some boundaries, depending on how far things go. If
Mm.
you're a popular woman, then you're a popular, but you don't want things to get out of hand.
Mm. And you mean setting boundaries as far as your family go, setting boundaries with your family, saying, okay, you know
Oh, it
what,
better be on
my
both sides.
okay,
Absolutely.
okay,
Like this is my mother. I'm gonna spend Thanksgiving here. Are you coming? Or this is my husband. Get over it. These type of boundaries may be necessary in most families.
mm, okay. And Chrissy, what are your thoughts on it?
Yeah, I mean, I think it depends on the type of couple. Like some couples can be super upfront with each other and be like, yeah, I can receive that. And, like I can receive the fact that, you see this as childish or, whatever. But for some couples, I think delivery is also really important. So it really depends on the couple. But yeah, I
Absolutely.
mean, like when it comes to, what you were sharing of like, people are going to ask for your time. Like there will be competition for your time. Like that is just part of reality day to day. But I always tell couples, like, you and your partner are the most important relationship, and to protect that relationship above everything else, which is hard to do. It's really hard to do, especially when you have so many people pulling for your attention.
I agree with that. I agree with that a 1,000%. Again, jumping back to marriage, that was really difficult for us to do because we it was more so of his family where there was like, that's our baby boy, that's our love child, that's him, we want to keep him safe, you
Mhm.
know. And so it, like I said, for us it was more it was competitive, but there was no winning. And so then there had became a point where I just kind of dropped off and I say, you know what, I'm going to back up. I'm not going to do anything at all. And I
Mhm.
just, okay, you know what, when your mother comes, I know that's where you're going. That's where you're spending time with. If I cooked a full meal and his mother brought pizza, I am not expecting for him to eat any of what I made because it was just that type of situation where it was super it's not healthy. It's not healthy. It's not okay. But once I realized that was the dynamic and that was the thing there, I just kind of backed off altogether. And again, it caused more issues. There were some more things that had happened where it had kind of spiraled, but I realized I couldn't say much. I couldn't say anything without there being an issue, or where he felt like I was disrespecting his family or his mother or anything like that. I just pulled off completely. And so it does depend on the situation, the circumstances, the couples. It depends on the relationship that your partner may have with their family, and or even if they believe in or can set boundaries with their families, because a lot of people cannot. They
Mhm.
cannot. They refuse to set those boundaries with their family members. And so then you end up with a bunch of people, bunch of family, and the privacy of your relationship or marriages where they simply should not be, in my opinion.
Mhm. Mhm.
Hmm.
Yeah.
I personally think that it's all about communication because at the end of the day, yes, their family is there and is going to be there, but they married you. You married them. You didn't marry their family. So I think when it comes to that, communication is extremely important. I think that, yeah, of course, he might want to spend, a holiday at his mom's house one year. Okay, so then you go to your mom's house the next year, or you have the holiday at your house the next year, and then they come over. I think in that situation, it should be some kind of compromise. But I also don't think that a person's family member should be inserting themselves into any part of anybody's relationship because that person is grown. They're old enough to make their own decisions. You don't need to. I feel like family members overstep in that sense, and if the partner, spouse, whoever lets it happen, then to me, I don't feel like they have that much respect for their wife or their husband or whoever, because at the end of the day, that's who they married and that's who they chose to be with. They didn't choose to be with their family, but that's who they picked to be with, and they need to honor it and respect who they chose to be with because they are a grown person. Yes, of course, they love their mom, their parents, whatever. They can be what they need for their parents, but at the same time, they're grown, and their parents need to
Mhm.
also respect the fact that they are grown, that they're not a little kid anymore, that they're old enough to make their own decisions, and that the parent doesn't need to sit there and hold their hand all the time.
Mhm.
So that's just how I feel about that.
And I think it may just
Yeah.
be more of a sense of entitlement thing as well, as far as family or friends or whoever may be being invasive in your relationship that you have. It just may be more of an entitlement thing. And then sometimes it's maybe more of a jealousy thing. Maybe they are used to spending time with you and, you being there for them. And so when you get a partner, you have someone who does require more of your time, or you have a relationship you have to feed into. They may feel like, okay, abandoned. They may feel like, okay, this person doesn't need me anymore, or we're not friends anymore, or whatever it is. I think it's also that as well.
I mean, I
Mhm.
have a friend. who's married, and she's been married like 6 years now, and she got married like only a few months after um meeting the person. And the person, the guy that she married, was like on and off with his family, and his family hated her because he didn't tell them that he was getting married.
Mm.
And he was like, I'm grown. I don't have to tell you every aspect of my life. I don't have to tell you everything that's going on. And so, his mom recently passed away, but it turned into like a whole melee of like family members getting involved, everybody arguing and trying to fight each other. It was just like a whole big old shebang bang over the fact that I guess they felt like she was taking him away from them. And he's like, again, I am a grown man. So how can anybody take me away? I'm allowed to make my own choices and decide what I'm going to do with my life and who I'm going to be with, whether you approve or not. And so, yeah, I can see the whole sense of entitlement thing coming from that end, but it's also a clear disregard for boundaries, because the family caused a big old melee because of a choice that he chose to make, but put the blame on her, like if it was her fault, because
Christy,
he chose for. Oh, sorry, real quick, because
go ahead.
he chose for her not to meet the family. That was his choice, and so now all the blame was put on her. So yeah.
Chrissy, do you think that with this issue as it concerns family and whether if it's entitlement, jealousy, boundaries, whatever it is, do you think that this issue also stems from maybe some type of trauma, maybe feeling like your family has to be in everything, or them feeling like their family has to be a part of their relationships and things like that? Do you think that is also an attachment issue that they may still have with their family, where they can't, not that you don't have
Mhm.
be attached or have a relationship, but where they feel like their family just needs to be involved in every part of their life or relationships, which is why they can't set those boundaries, or maybe they've tried setting those boundaries before and then backlash, and so maybe this is some
Yeah.
type of response to why they can't do it.
Yeah. This is a huge trend that I see in dysfunctional families is enmeshment and intimacy get confused,
Mm,
where somebody thinks that, oh, love means, you do whatever I need, you think the things I think, you feel the things I feel. Um, and what happens in those dynamics is that you're taught as a child that because your parent is your parent, just because they are in that role, they have unlimited access to you
mm,
and that boundaries aren't acceptable. And that's the enmeshment issue. That's not that's not what love is. And Unique, you were saying like, they're their own person and they're a grown person. And yeah, like part of love is being able to release that person to be who they are and to let them live as the person that they are instead of trying to conform them to meet in a way that will meet your needs. And so in dysfunctional families, you see kids grow up with this sense that, like, if I have a boundary or if I say no in any way, I'm a bad person.
mm.
And I think that's one of the biggest things that keeps people from healing and being able to have healthy relationships as opposed to being enmeshed is that they're so afraid of being a bad person because that's what they were taught. So yeah, I mean, I think that's a huge trend
Yeah,
in
yeah. I
toxic
mean, and
families.
I totally agree with you. I totally agree with you on that. Again, just what I've seen, um, again, with people that I know, what I've experienced myself. and just people who I've talked to, that is definitely a trend where they feel like they cannot do or even make a move without their
Mhm.
family being involved in every part of their life. They can't even have a love life, have a private life because they feel like their family needs to be there and know everything. But I believe, once once you say, "Okay, I'm gonna let you in this part of my life," then it also leaves room for them to feel as if they can come and invade other parts of your life that probably should be left more private, and unfortunately, sometimes
Mhm.
not.
Yeah, yeah, yeah. And I mean, it's so scary to set boundaries with, family members like that because there usually is a backlash. And I think especially if you have this fear of abandonment, like if that's a part of your trauma narrative, it's it's scary to set boundaries. But once you get to a place where you've tried it, in small ways, you can slowly learn, like, okay, I can survive the other side of this, and you can do it in bigger ways. Um, but it is a really challenging thing to do, and it takes a lot of courage and a lot of support from other healthy people to be
Yeah.
able to do that. Mhm.
Yeah, totally agree, totally agree. You brought something up, you said fear of abandonment.
Mhm.
People who are f are in fear of that, do you
Mhm.
believe that those are well, let me see, how do I wanna ask this? People who are in fear of abandonment, do you believe that they try more to stay away from relationships because they don't want to be abandoned, or do they gravitate to them more, or is it just kind of like an equal thing?
Well, they gravitate towards, sorry, say that one more
Being in a
time.
relationship, or do they try to stay away from it because they don't want to be abandoned, they don't wanna be left alone?
Yeah, I've seen it both. People with abandonment trauma uh, can go in many different directions. Like, yeah, they can, on the one hand, like really grip onto a relationship out of fear of being abandoned. And they're usually like the people pleaser, perfectionistic type of
Mm,
person. They can avoid relationships completely because avoiding relationships means avoiding the risk of being abandoned.
right,
And then you see the third one, which is where you enter into relationships, and once you start to get really close, you pull away. It's like you self-sabotage because if you can abandon them first, then you don't have to be abandoned. So, yeah,
right,
there are
right,
many different ways. Mhm.
1,000%. I can honestly sit here and say I've done all 3.
Yeah,
I've done
me
all 3.
too.
I'm
Yeah,
totally honest and transparent.
yeah.
I have done all
Mhm.
3. I've went through the phase where I wanted to be in a relationship. I wanted to be with somebody. The fear of being alone was not something that I've liked. And then I've also been
Yeah.
in a phase where, you know what, Imma ghost me before you or ghost you before you can ghost me. And then
Mhm.
also where,
Yeah.
okay, I don't wanna deal with anyone at all. I don't wanna love anybody. I just rather not deal with someone. And for
Mhm.
that was for different reasons, not for really
Mhm.
wanting to be alone. That was trauma that I had experienced with my losing my grandmother and my uncle, where I was
Mhm.
like, I don't want to meet anybody else who I could possibly love, like nothing, because
Yeah. Yes.
that was such an experience. And so I've been all three. Um, I
Mhm.
see a lot of people now just where they rather, well, again, just people I know in my personal life where they rather just be alone because they don't
Mhm.
want to they don't want anyone just to leave them. They don't wanna be left alone. They don't wanna get into something serious or, say, "Hey, this person really likes me or they love me," and then they
Mhm.
have those anxieties of this person also leaving them, however that may be, whether if
Yeah.
that just comes through, death or if it just comes through maybe the relationship just doesn't work, and so then they push people away. They push people
Mhm.
away because they rather just be alone than to actually have, relationships, which, also seems very, very unhealthy because I am one of those people where I believe we do need relationships. Relationships are
Yeah.
important in life.
Mhm. Yeah, and I think deep beneath that is just this, like, belief that you're unlovable, that, like, nobody
Mm,
could actually love you well, and So, that's part of that abandonment wound is like, okay, let's just stay away from the possibility of love because love is a risk. Like the
Mm,
person you enter a relationship with, whether they're super healthy and wholesome or super toxic, like they're going to hurt you at some point. And
mhm.
if you're terrified of being hurt and you don't believe that you're lovable, then yeah, you're gonna push people away.
Where would you say that that stemmed from? That where they're terrified just simply of accepting love or being able to give love or just even being hurt? Where does that stem from?
I mean, I think it really depends on the person. I mean, the broad generalized answer would be, family trauma, like growing up in a place where if you were to be yourself, you weren't going to be given love.
Mm,
Um, but there's so many ways that we can be wounded or not receive love in the way we needed as kids that affect us in that way. But, imagine like growing up realizing like, huh, if I act this way, then I get some form of affection that I'm craving.
mhm.
Then you're going to learn like I am not acceptable as I am. I have to change myself and be somebody else in order to receive love or attention. So
Mhm.
you grow up with that idea like I'm not lovable as I am.
Is
And it's
and then
too
as you
risky
get
to show people
older.
who I am.
Right, right,
Mhm.
and as you get
Yeah.
older and you experience life and relationships, I believe that problem just expands, it gets bigger, it grows wider,
Mhm.
um,
Yeah.
until, again, they get to the point where they're just like, "Okay, 1, I don't want to deal with anyone, I wanna be alone," or maybe
Mhm.
they do find someone and they just cling to them. They don't wanna let go, for
Yeah.
the fear of being alone, and so I totally agree with you. I mean, yeah, a lot of it, can say there are a lot of issues that do stem from childhood trauma with the family. But
Mhm.
if you have someone who's gotten to a place where they're like, I know this is a problem with me. I have a person here in my life who I like or I love or whatever it is, or I
Mhm.
have this opportunity. How would they go about first, well, just seeking or starting to heal from that?
Mhm.
What do you do with that? Because a lot of that also seems like some, well, not a lot of it, but some part of it also seems like self-affliction.
Yeah. Yeah, there's a lot of self-affliction, a lot of self-sabotage. The I think a good starting place is to make the commitment to not abandon yourself. And what I
Mm,
mean by that is, to choose to not put on that role self and to be the person you are. So if you feel some sort of emotion, like accepting that and not trying to change it or be somebody else or act a different way. If you want to do something or you don't want to do something, to act in a way that's true to you. So really like letting go of these perfectionistic habits or these
mm,
self-protective habits of becoming somebody else and putting a facade on and like letting your partner see you so that they can actually relate with you and not with this mask that you've put on.
right, right, right. Which I think is really easy for a lot of people to do. Well, I believe is when they
Yeah,
get
so
there,
easy.
it's, yeah, it's easy for you to, well, it's not as easy to try to take off the mask, but it's definitely easy for
Mhm,
you to keep picking it back up because there's part of yourself that you don't
mhm.
want your partner to see because you may feel ashamed. You may feel like, okay, well, maybe they won't accept me or they won't love me if they knew this vulnerable part, this vulnerable side of me.
Yeah,
And
and
so
the
it's very,
irony yeah.
yeah, go ahead, I'm sorry.
Yeah, and the irony is that, like, when shame meets, like, love, like, somebody who actually loves you, like, that's when the healing happens. But as long as we stuff that shame in, like, we're not gonna heal. So, yeah, it's, like, a beautiful opportunity, and we talked about this, like, at the beginning,
Yeah,
of this podcast of, like, when you are, in a relationship with somebody who's willing to show up authentically and to love you well and be attentive and attuned to you, like you can heal your trauma. They can help heal your trauma. And part of that is exposing those vulnerable parts of you and that
Right.
shame. As long as they're a safe person, you don't want to do that with somebody who is going to abuse that.
Abuse and attack, or even just
Hmm.
um who is someone who may try to victimize you even.
Yeah, yeah.
And play on that,
Mhm.
because that does happen as well. You know, you get vulnerable and you open yourself up to someone, and then they turn out to be maybe not such a good person, where then they end up becoming the
Mhm.
abuser.
Yeah. Mhm.
And so, wow, well, that was awesome. That was so, so awesome.
Mm.
Thank you so much. Brandon, Unique, you guys want to add anything? Chime in?
No, I just think that everything we said was good points, and learn stuff every day, and that people just there's boundaries that people need to have, and also find ways to help deal with their trauma that doesn't affect them in their lives and in their relationships,
Mm.
and just find a way to be healthy always.
Yeah. Yeah.
Absolutely. Absolutely. Brandon, anything you
Mhm.
want to add?
Just that healing and time go hand in hand. If healing is something that you're looking for, giving up or feeling that you're worthless or that this isn't from you, self-sabotage, all these things are the wrong way to go.
Mm. Yeah.
Absolutely. If you're looking for true healing and you really want to become a better person, not just for yourself, but then for your partner, the people around you, friends, kids, whatever it is, self-sabotage is what stops, I believe, a lot of healing for a lot of people. And maybe they, like
Mhm.
I said earlier, they get to a point where they just don't feel comfortable. They feel like they have to put that mask back on, they have to cover it up. And so it's important, again, relationships, having someone there, like you said, a safe person
Mm.
to be like, it's okay. It is
Mhm.
okay that you experience these things. It's okay that you feel this way. I'm going to be here with you and help you while
Yeah.
you heal and be a part
Mhm.
of that. And that can make for a very, I believe, also a really strong, solid relationship when you have someone in your corner who wants to be there with you while you go through this process. As long as they're not harming and hurting you, it can make for a really solid relationship.
Yes, absolutely.
I say
Mhm.
you can tell me if I'm wrong, Miss Chrissy. You're the doctor. You're the
No,
I
100%.
only started
You're
going to
spot
school
on.
for it. I only started going to school for it. So I'm not I don't have the degree in
Yeah.
it, but
Yeah, but thank you so much for sharing, like, your story and your experience. I mean, I think
yeah,
that,
yeah.
like, people need to hear stories of other people being able to overcome these things and make it to the other side in
For
some
sure.
way, you know? I think it's so important.
Yeah, for sure, for sure. Like I said, no problem at all. This is why I'm doing this podcast, to let
Yeah.
people know that you can come out of it. You can, their trauma in relationships and romantic relationships, they exist. It is real. It is real. And you have to go through the grieving. You have to go through all these things if you truly want to
Mhm.
heal, but it is possible. It is
Yeah.
very, very possible. So I appreciate you for coming on, answering all our questions, letting us bug you.
It was so wonderful getting to talk to you
Awesome.
guys. Mhm.
Absolutely. Thank you, Unique. Thank you, thank you, thank you, thank you,
Oh,
Brandon, for coming on. I
you're
love you
welcome.
both. And that wraps up our show today for the Love Talk podcast. You guys are so awesome. Oh, go ahead and give us your website and different resources and things like that that you have for us, Christy, before I wrap this up.
Yeah, so there's a free guide on my website. If you go to relational code, sorry, my relationalhealingco.com. My brain just blanked for a second. There's a whole guide on there that will basically talk you through how to have different types of boundaries and how to interact with the different types of toxic people in your life. So this is a great resource if you've got toxic people that you're trying to navigate around. So that's relationalhealingco.com/guide. And then there will be a course coming out in November, an online course that is all about how to have healthy relationships as an adult when you grew up in a dysfunctional or toxic family. So stay tuned for that. It'll be a really helpful resource if you're looking for, okay, how do I have safe, wholesome relationships in my life?
Awesome. And I would love to have you back on again if you don't mind.
I'd love
This
to.
was so
Yeah.
great. This was so awesome.
Absolutely.
All right, guys. Well, this
Thank you so
wraps up
much.
our episode. You're very welcome. You all enjoy the rest of your night. And that's it. The Love Talk podcast is coming to an end today. Bye, guys.
Bye.
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 Bye.